At this moment, Buddha was severely injured. This made Brunhilde and Gaul very worried. However, he still wanted to eat candy. This made Brunhilde burst out laughing. Because Buddha was still fine, she promised to help humanity survive. Buddha saw the longing look in Brunhilde's eyes, which made him very fond of her. However, he still needed urgent treatment. At this moment, Brunhilde had already made a decision for the next battle. Meanwhile, Odin went to meet Beelzebub. He said that he really liked this battle. So, he would not allow anyone to interfere with his fight. Beelzebub found this very interesting. On Brunhilde's side, she encountered a copy of herself. Brunhilde realized that Nostradamus was impersonating her. It turned out that he was extremely mischievous. Brunhilde said that if he kept causing trouble, she would send him back to hell. This made Nostradamus anxious. So, he immediately pretended to cry in front of Brunhilde. But, she knew very well that he just wanted to join the battle. It turned out that Nostradamus was known as the most obnoxious man in the history of humanity. Because he was the only human who violated the gods' taboo. And he was imprisoned in Tartarus, the prison beneath hell. This made Nostradamus feel embarrassed. He thought Brunhilde was praising him. It turned out that Valhalla and Helheim were connected by the Bifrost Gate. It was also called the Gate of Rainbow and Darkness. Only chief gods like Zeus, Hades, Odin, and Shiva could pass through it. This made Nostradamus feel regretful, because he was stopped before he could destroy that gate. Brunhilde told him not to treat the Gate of Rainbow and Darkness as a toy, and that he must stay quietly in the waiting room until Brunhilde summoned him, because Brunhilde regarded him as humanity's hidden card. At this moment, Brunhilde realized that the score was tied. Humanity had 3 wins and 3 losses. This allowed her to see hope. Meanwhile, the gods realized that they were tied with humanity. This was a failure for the gods. Hermes did not believe humans could be this strong, and it was thanks to the Valkyries transforming into weapons for humanity, giving them the power to fight against the gods. Although this power was originally meant to protect Valhalla, it had now become a weapon opposing the gods. At the same time, Brunhilde was also calculating. She planned to use weapons that could rival the gods' divine weapons. Brunhilde recalled the fierce battle between Adam and Zeus. Although Adam lost, it proved that humanity could defeat the gods. Then, came the battle between Sasaki and Poseidon. This time, humanity won, and this was humanity's first victory. Hermes felt this was a humiliation for the gods. Even in the next match, Jack the Ripper defeated Heracles. A murderer was able to defeat the god of justice. In the 5th match, Raiden fought against Shiva. Raiden was able to gain the upper hand against Shiva. But in the end, Raiden still lost. However, Shiva acknowledged his strength. Even Hermes could not believe it, that a human could fight the god who commanded 11-16 Indian gods. And what no one expected in the 6th match, Buddha represented humanity, and he fought against Hagen, an extremely powerful god. However, Buddha was still determined to save humanity. So, he defeated Hagen. At this moment, Brunhilde was preparing for the 7th battle. Gaul informed her that Buddha was fine. This made Brunhilde excited. She believed that humanity could win. At this moment, the 7th match had begun. The first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, he would fight against Hades, the king of Helheim, and this was a battle between kings. It turned out that after Buddha betrayed the gods and won a victory for humanity, it left one position vacant on the gods' roster. Zeus realized that humanity was very strong, so they could not randomly choose a weak god as a replacement. Ares thought Hermes would choose him. This made him nervous, because humanity was extremely powerful. But, he could not lose the honor of the god of war. Unexpectedly, Hades decided to enter the battle. This shocked everyone. Zeus did not understand why his older brother wanted to fight. It turned out that Hades wanted to take revenge for Poseidon. At this moment, Brunhilde was very confident. She believed that Buddha's match had shocked the gods. Unexpectedly, when Brunhilde opened the door, she saw Nostradamus disguised as her again. This shocked Gaul. Suddenly, Nostradamus made a prophecy. In this match, the gods would win. This made Gaul worried. She thought humanity would lose. Unexpectedly, Nostradamus was just teasing them. Brunhilde told them to just ignore him. Suddenly, she realized that Hades would participate in the 7th match. This shocked them, because no one had ever defeated the King of Hell. However, Brunhilde thought of someone, and she decided that this match would be a king versus king battle. In the end, she chose Qin. At this moment, Qin was looking for the waiting room. Meanwhile, Ares felt relieved. Hermes said that he had narrowly escaped death. However, with Hades entering the battle, Ares believed they would win the next match. Suddenly, Qin entered the wrong room. He casually sat down in front of Ares. This shocked Ares. He had no idea who this person was. Qin even sat on Hades' seat. So, Ares immediately warned him and tried to escort him away. Unexpectedly, Qin instantly spun Ares around, causing Ares to fall to the ground, because he was too fast. This shocked Hermes. He did not know who this human was. When Qin saw Hermes standing in front of him, he immediately ordered Hermes to kneel and said, "Wherever I sit, that place shall be my throne." This enraged Ares. He tried to drag Qin away again, but Ares was thrown to the ground once more. This left everyone stunned. Hermes found this human very interesting, so he brought honeyed water for Qin to drink. But Ares was still furious. Suddenly, Gaul ran over. It turned out that Qin had smashed through the walls. That was how they managed to find him. Brunhilde scolded him for not staying in the waiting room, but Qin remained extremely arrogant. Ares realized that this man was very dangerous. When Brunhilde told him to return, Qin refused, because he liked sitting here. At this moment, Brunhilde told him that his 7th match was about to begin. This shocked Hermes and Ares. Meanwhile, Qin was delighted, because he had been waiting for this battle. Ares could not believe that this man would fight Hades. At this moment, everyone gathered in the arena, waiting for the 7th match to begin. When Heimdall began introducing humanity's representative, no one stepped forward. Suddenly, all the kings of China gathered together. They all felt proud, and together they lifted a red carpet. It turned out they were laying down a path for Qin to walk upon. Heimdall announced that this man had destroyed the 6 warring states and ended 550 years of chaos in China. He was the one who paved the way, built the walls, and became the first to unify China, and people called him the king of all beginnings. Qin Shi Huang. This shocked the gods, because he emerged from the gods' entrance. Gaul did not know whether he could fight, because he was always wearing a blindfold. Suddenly, a girl appeared. Alvider scolded Qin for getting lost and making her wait all by herself. This made Alvider very angry. He did not even bother to train in using divine weapons. That meant they could not synchronize their hearts. But Qin suddenly hugged her. This made Alvider feel embarrassed. Even Qin's presence made her heart race, and she transformed into a suit of armor for Qin. At this moment, Hades prepared to step onto the arena. Suddenly, Poseidon's subordinate came to see him. He handed Hades Poseidon's trident, because he wanted Hades to take revenge for his master. However, Hades scolded him for being foolish, because his younger brother would never demand revenge. But Hades would still avenge his brother, and he merged Poseidon's trident into his own divine weapon. Meanwhile, Poseidon's servant trusted that Hades would win. At this moment, Heimdall was trembling, because the one he was introducing was the king of hell. This made the gods feel fear, because this god was terrifyingly powerful. His pet, Cerberus, guarded the underworld, and he was the eldest of the 3 strongest Greek gods. He was the king of Helheim, Hades. At this moment, the 7th match was seen as a battle between kings. When the battle began, Hades said that although Qin held no grudge against him, he must bear his hatred on behalf of humanity, because humanity had killed his younger brother. This made the entire arena fall silent, and Hades immediately attacked Qin. But Qin dodged the attack. Hades realized that Qin's eyes could see very clearly. He continued attacking, forcing Qin to dodge continuously. Suddenly, Hades used the technique Iron Hammer of the Netherworld, shattering the ground and injuring Qin. This shocked the gods, because Hades' power was overwhelming. Hades charged forward again with a devastating blow. Unexpectedly, Qin blocked it. He even deflected Hades' attack. Qin then grabbed the spear and pushed it back, sending Hades flying backward with injuries. This astonished everyone. It turned out this technique was called the Force of the Phoenix. At this moment, Qin declared, "In this world, there is only one king, and that is me." Qiyu is an ancient monster in Chinese mythology. It is a bull-headed, human-bodied monster with 4 eyes and 6 arms. Many people believe it invented weapons of war, so they worship Qiyu as a god of weaponry. However, there is another truth. In China, Qiyu was actually the one who chose who would become king. By the time of Qin's reign, he declared that he would unify the world. After that, he climbed Qiyu's mountain to perform a prayer ritual. At that moment, Qin met Qiyu. This surprised him, because Qin was still very young, yet he had already defeated 6 states. He was not afraid at all when facing Qiyu. This intrigued him, so Qiyu told Qin to offer 10,000 people as sacrifices, and he would allow Qin to become king. Suddenly, Qin threw a coffin toward him. Qiyu realized that inside was a clay figure. This enraged him. Qiyu said that if he did not choose Qin, Qin would never be able to rule China. However, Qin felt that he was far too arrogant, and he would kneel to no one. While others worshipped Qiyu as a god, Qin only saw him as a monster. He decided to defeat Qiyu, so that he could become the king of all beginnings. This made Chiyu furious. Unexpectedly, Qin truly defeated Chiyu, and this battle lasted 6 days. Returning to the present, Qin knocked Hades down. This shocked Gaul. Brunhilde explained that this ultimate technique was mastered during his battle with Chiyu. It was the pinnacle of martial arts, and its name was Chiyu. This shocked Ares, because he had been thrown down in the same way. Ares could not understand how Qin did it. Hermes explained that Qin had converted his opponent's attacking energy. He reflected it back at his opponent. So, Hades was struck by his own power. At this moment, Qin challenged Hades, but Hades asked, "What is a king to you?" Qin replied that a king does not bow or rely on others, and always stands firm before his people. This made Hades laugh. So, Qin laughed back at him. This surprised everyone, but Qin did not understand why Hades was laughing. It turned out that Hades saw Poseidon in Qin. So, Hades believed his younger brother deserved to be king more than anyone else, and he would not allow himself to lose to a mere human king. At this moment, Hades continued his assault. This was an attack using all of Hades' power. This shocked everyone. Qin once again used the force of the phoenix to block it. Everyone thought Hades' attack would be reflected back, but Hades pulled Qin toward himself and continued to press him down into the ground with overwhelming force. This stunned everyone. They thought Qin had been defeated. However, Qin was still alive. Although he was severely injured, he still stood back up. Suddenly, Qin removed his blindfold. This made him eager to continue fighting. Hades immediately rushed in to attack him. So, Qin kept dodging continuously. Brunhilde realized that Qin was trying to do something. When Hades used the technique the Earth Crusher, everyone thought Qin would be defeated. Unexpectedly, Qin fired an air bullet from his mouth. This caused Hades to lose focus. So, Qin lifted Hades and slammed him to the ground. Qin continued his attack, but Hades blocked him. Hades could not understand how Qin was countering his techniques. At this moment, they continued to clash head-on. Qin kept firing air bullets. This distracted Hades. So, Qin struck Hades in the abdomen. This shocked everyone, because he was able to injure the body of the King of Hell. But Hades realized something. The air bullets Qin fired were disrupting the flow of Hades' techniques. It turned out that Qin's eyes could see the weak points in Hades' body. Sasaki explained that, within the human body, there are always flows of energy. By striking the key points of those energy flows, one can prevent an opponent's power from being fully released. Brunhilde said that this was Qin's bow stance, because his eyes could see the stars themselves. Gaul did not understand why he liked covering his eyes. Brunhilde explained that, when someone possesses extraordinary abilities, they also lose something in return. Suddenly, Qin's abdomen was also injured. It turned out that these eyes allowed him to feel the pain of others as well. But Qin did not see this as a weakness, because it helped him become the greatest king. Qin recalled that, from a young age, he was an abandoned prince. His real name was Ying Zheng, and he was a Qin hostage in the state of Zhao. This made the two guards unhappy, because every day they had to watch over Ying Zheng. At this moment, he met a woman named Chunyin. It turned out that she was Ying Zheng's new bodyguard. She warned him that she could do anything she wanted to Ying Zheng. Although he was frightened, Ying Zheng still behaved obediently. When Chunyin saw Ying Zheng's dilapidated home, she continued to tease him. But he did not get angry at all. This made Chunyin uncomfortable, because children his age would normally get angry or cry. But Ying Zheng always kept a cheerful expression. This left her feeling helpless. After that, Chunyin decided to clean the place up, and they began living together in that house. At this time, they went to the market together. Chunyin noticed that Ying Zheng was craving steamed buns. So, she bought some for him. Unexpectedly, when the shop owner saw Ying Zheng, he threw the buns onto the ground. This angered Chunyin, but Ying Zheng still happily picked up the buns and ate them. People realized that he was a Qin hostage. This made the citizens of Zhao furious, because their loved ones had been killed by the state of Qin. This frightened Ying Zheng, but he still had to bow his head before them. That night, Chunyin discovered wounds appearing on Ying Zheng's body. This made her worried. Ying Zheng explained that, whenever he saw injured people or sensed hatred, wounds would appear all over his body. It turned out to be a phenomenon of tactile sensation through vision. He was turning other people's wounds into his own, but those wounds would heal over time. Ying Zheng believed this was his punishment, and he always smiled to soothe everything. However, Chunyin scolded Ying Zheng because he never expressed anger or hatred toward anyone. So, she did not want him to hide his emotions anymore. Although Ying Zheng's parents were cruel people, she knew that he himself was kind-hearted. So, Chunyin told him to live the way he truly wanted. This made Ying Zheng burst into tears. The next morning, he felt much better. Chunyin gave him a blindfold. This would help ease his pain. This made Ying Zheng very happy. The days he spent living with Chunyin were the happiest days of his life. However, 2 years later, the man who had abandoned Ying Zheng became the king of Qin. So, Ying Zheng became the crown prince with legitimate succession rights, and he was taken back to Qin. At this moment, Ying Zheng realized that he was about to part ways with Chunyin. This made him very sad. Suddenly, they were attacked. It turned out to be assassins sent after Ying Zheng. Unexpectedly, he decided to fight back. This pleased Chunyin, so she knocked Ying Zheng out, because Chunyin's duty was to protect him. However, there were too many enemies. This left Chunyin gravely injured. When one soldier was about to kill Ying Zheng, Chunyin defeated him, but she also collapsed. At this moment, Chunyin told him that she also had a son. However, her child had been killed by Qin soldiers. This made her deeply hate the state of Qin. She had even thought about killing Ying Zheng, but after living with him, she no longer had such thoughts, and she told Ying Zheng to become the greatest king. So, he promised her. In the end, Chunyin died. Sometime later, Ying Zheng became the king of Qin, and he became the first ruler to unify all of China. He was known as Qin Shi Huang. He went through countless battles. So, Qin gained the power to see the stars on the body, and he did everything for a single promise: to become the greatest king. Therefore, Qin would lose to no one. At this moment, everyone was amazed by Qin's skills. He could even overwhelm Hades. Ares and Hermes had no idea how to counter his air bullets. However, Zeus trusted in Hades' power and battle experience. At this moment, Hades continued his assault. Unexpectedly, he was able to block the air bullets. This surprised Qin, allowing Hades to regain the upper hand. However, Qin dodged Hades' attack and kicked Hades backward. This shocked everyone. Hades began to acknowledge Qin's strength. This delighted them all. At this moment, Beelzebub was in the laboratory. Suddenly, a creature inside a test tube awakened. It shattered the tube and tried to attack Beelzebub, but he effortlessly sliced off its arm. This frightened the creature, causing it to flee. Suddenly, a machine appeared and destroyed it. Beelzebub realized that this machine had no issues with its new body. It turned out that this machine was Adamas, and Hades was the one who had asked Beelzebub to create this body. But Adamas asked why Beelzebub was planning to create Hadrian's body. After all, Hadrian was the legendary monster who once fought Buddha. But Beelzebub said, "I only want to create something that can kill me." This shocked Adamas. At this moment, they were still watching Hades' match. Beelzebub believed that Hades would win this battle. At this time, Qin's people were cheering for him non-stop. Chunyin's mother and child also believed in their king. Meanwhile, Hades acknowledged that Qin was worthy of being a king. So, Hades stabbed himself with his own spear. This shocked everyone. They could not understand why he would injure himself. But Zeus said that he was prepared to sacrifice everything to win. That was the king of hell. Hades. Sasaki realized that Hades was humming Poseidon's song, while Qin had no idea what he was doing. Then, Hades continued his assault. Qin continued using air bullets, but they had no effect. He realized that Hades had altered the flow of his own energy. Hades used his blood to cover his body. Even his blood was abnormal, and he fused it with his weapon, making Hades' divine weapon even more powerful. However, Zeus said this technique had one weakness. If Hades' life force was depleted, he would die. It turned out this technique was called Ichor Desmos. Hades said this was his trump card. Then, Hades launched another attack at Qin. Qin tried to block it, but Hades' thrust was far too powerful. It pierced through Qin's armor and stabbed into his shoulder. This shocked everyone. Hades said that he could not lose, because he was the eldest brother. It turned out that Hades was not only known as a terrifying god, he was also the god most trusted by the other gods. During the great crisis of Mount Olympus, Zeus overthrew his father, Kronos, and became the leader of the Greek gods. However, the primordial goddess Gaia did not accept this. So, she led the strongest giants. Gaia launched a massive assault on Mount Olympus. This battle was known as the Gigantomachy. At that time, Zeus' 4 brothers realized the situation was dire, because the giants' power was overwhelming. However, Zeus was thrilled. He was confident that he would defeat them. Suddenly, Hades received news that the giants were invading the underworld. This caused Tartarus to fall. It was the prison of the gods, where the most terrifying gods were confined. But Hades was not worried at all. While Zeus, Adamas, and Poseidon were fiercely battling Gaia's army, they eventually emerged victorious. But Poseidon did not see Hades anywhere. It turned out that Hades had single-handedly stopped the invaders in the underworld. When Poseidon arrived, Hades had already won. He had even sent all of his troops as reinforcements, leaving only himself behind. Hades said that the duty of the eldest brother was to protect his younger brothers. Poseidon said this was far too reckless. But Hades was certain that he would not lose. At that moment, Poseidon acknowledged Hades as his brother. Returning to the present battle, the gods were cheering for Hades because they all trusted him. But Hermes did not understand why Hades was so deeply attached to his younger brothers. Suddenly, Adamas appeared. This shocked Ares because Adamas had been destroyed by Poseidon. However, Hermes explained that Hades had asked Beelzebub to heal and reconstruct his body. Even Poseidon was aware of this. In the end, Adamas was reborn under a new name, Adamantine. At this moment, Adamas told them the reason Hades was so obsessed with his younger brothers was simply because he loved them with all his heart. At this moment, Hades' attack shattered Chin's armor. This shocked the other gods because Hades' divine weapon was able to pierce another divine weapon. Since Alvider had transformed into the armor, she was injured as well. Chin apologized to her, although he himself was badly wounded. No matter what kind of pain it was, he could endure it endlessly. Sasaki realized that Chin's trump card had been nullified, and he could no longer use the force of the Phoenix. At this moment, Chin was completely overwhelmed, so he decided to gamble everything on his next attack, because he wanted to win. Alvider chose to support him as well. After that, she gave Chin all of her power, and she transformed into a sword. Brunhilde realized that this was the first Emperor's Gujian sword. Hades saw that Chin was using all of his strength. This delighted him, because this was a battle between kings. Everyone watched in silence. Then both of them unleashed their strongest attacks. Unexpectedly, Chin's sword was knocked back, causing him to lose an arm. This made everyone anxious. They thought Chin would lose. Alvider apologized to him, but Chin burst out laughing, because he thought the stars were beautiful. Chin stood up once again. This made his people burst into tears. Because he was a king, he was not allowed to bow his head. Everyone saw Chin's resolve, so they began cheering for him. Chunyan realized that he had always kept his promise to her. He had become the greatest king. At this moment, everyone was watching intently. Sasaki thought Chin could not win, but Okita saw determination in his eyes. Alvider asked if he had a plan. Chin decided to use the force of the Phoenix one more time. Even though his current physical condition made it impossible, Alvider still trusted him, and she synchronized with the sword. This greatly excited Hades. He decided to pour all of his strength into his final attack. So, Hades charged forward. He rushed straight toward Chin at incredible speed. But Chin blocked Hades' attack, and he used the force of the Phoenix. This shocked everyone, because he used this technique with only one arm. Suddenly, Chin fired an air bullet into Hades' divine weapon, causing its power to vanish. Chin recalled his past. He was determined to bring about a new beginning. Unexpectedly, Hades' divine weapon shattered. This shocked everyone, and Chin's sword struck Hades. At this moment, Hades acknowledged Chin as a king, and he could no longer protect his younger brothers. In the end, Chin emerged victorious. This astonished everyone. At this moment, Chin regarded Hades as his friend. So, everyone showed respect to him. This filled humanity with joy, because they had defeated the gods. Meanwhile, the gods still could not believe that Hades had lost. At this moment, both Chin and Alvider were gravely injured. But they were happy. Suddenly, Chin collapsed, because he was completely exhausted. Meanwhile, a goddess did not understand how he managed to break Hades' spear. Sasaki explained that Chin had fired an air bullet into Hades' divine weapon. This disrupted the flow of energy within the spear. Normally, weapons do not have energy flow. But Hades' spear had been soaked in his blood, so it had become a part of his body. After that, Chin used the force of the Phoenix to reflect Hades' own power back at him. Thanks to this, Chin achieved victory. That was why everyone admired Chin's strength. Meanwhile, Ares could not believe that Hades had lost. This made Adamas furious. He no longer cared about the match, and he declared that he would kill whoever he wanted. Meanwhile, Zeus realized that, in Hades' final moments, he had apologized to his younger brothers. At this moment, humanity had secured 4 victories. So, they were now in the lead against the gods. However, the arena needed to be repaired to prepare for the 8th match. Meanwhile, Chin and Alvider were being treated. This made Gaul worried, because they needed time to recover. But Gaul was also overjoyed. She still could not believe that Qin Shi Huang had defeated Hades. When Brunhilde was about to visit Buddha, Adamas suddenly appeared. It turned out he was seeking Qin to take revenge for Hades. This terrified Gaul, because Adamas had previously been killed by Poseidon. However, Brunhilde remained calm. She could not reveal Qin's location. This enraged Adamas. When he was about to attack them, suddenly, Adamas' hand was severed. It turned out that Beelzebub had stopped him. He warned that Ragnarok would end if Brunhilde were killed, and Beelzebub did not want anyone to ruin his entertainment. But Adamas did not care. Beelzebub said that Adamas was defiling Hades' honor. This angered Adamas, but he had no choice but to leave. He warned that, after this war, he would kill everyone. This reassured Gaul, because they were safe. Brunhilde immediately thanked Beelzebub, but he said that there were still many gods who wished to slaughter humanity. At this moment, Buddha was recovering comfortably. Suddenly, Kintoki came to scold him, because Buddha had snuck out of the infirmary, and Kintoki handed Buddha a large amount of candy. This delighted Buddha. At this moment, Buddha had a favor to ask of Kintoki. So, Kintoki immediately agreed. He did not even need to know what the request was. It turned out that Buddha wanted Kintoki to investigate the one who would shake Ragnarok. His name was Siegfried. At this moment, Hermes was playing a piece of music to commemorate Hades. Unexpectedly, Beelzebub was also there. He wanted Hermes to deliver a message to Zeus. I will participate in the next match. Meanwhile, Brunhilde was extremely angry because Buddha had escaped from the infirmary. So, she decided not to care about him anymore, and she chose to prepare for the next match. Suddenly, she opened the door to a highly advanced room. When Gaul stepped inside, she was shocked. There was a man solving the laws of physics. It turned out he was Nikola Tesla. He was a genius scientist who invented alternating current generators, and his work was applied to all modern science and technology. So, he was known as the mad scientist of the century. Brunhilde asked if he had completed his research. Tesla replied that everything was ready. This pleased Brunhilde greatly. So, she immediately summoned Gondel. It turned out she would be the Valkyrie supporting Tesla. Suddenly, Tesla asked her to offer her body to him. Unexpectedly, Gondel agreed without hesitation, and they synchronized effortlessly. Gondel transformed into a divine weapon for Tesla. It turned out to be a special suit of armor. Tesla believed this armor could surpass the gods. Meanwhile, Beelzebub was the loneliest god in heaven, because he was regarded as the lord of the flies, and he was a child cursed by Satan. So, everyone viewed Beelzebub as a bad omen. They did not dare approach him. However, there were still 3 angels who dared to get close to Beelzebub. They were Lucifer, Azazel, and Samael. They constantly invited Beelzebub to steal apples with them, but he had no interest, no matter how much they tempted him. Beelzebub did not care, because he believed he was cursed by Satan. So, he did not want anyone near him. But Lucifer's group did not care. They believed Satan was merely a fictional ancient monster. So, they wanted to befriend Beelzebub, because Lucifer trusted his instincts completely. They would get along very well together. Suddenly, Azazel let out a fart. This made Beelzebub burst into laughter. In the end, he agreed to become friends with Lucifer's group. After that, they went to the Garden of Eden to steal apples. However, they were discovered by the guards. So, they all ran away together. From that day on, Lucifer's group became Beelzebub's first friends. This made him very happy, and he wished that they could stay together forever. When morning came, Beelzebub woke up. He saw blood everywhere around him. Unbelievably, Lucifer's group was dead. This shocked Beelzebub. He believed that he was the one who brought disaster upon them. At that moment, Beelzebub realized that Satan truly existed. So, he resolved to take revenge on Satan. From then on, Beelzebub tried to uncover Satan's true identity, and he continued to live in loneliness. Suddenly, a goddess came to see Beelzebub. She introduced herself as Lilith. She promised to help Beelzebub find Satan, but he immediately told her to stay away from him. It turned out that Lucifer was her childhood friend. So, she also wanted revenge against Satan, and Lilith was willing to do anything to help Beelzebub. He realized that her personality was very similar to Lucifer's. So, they began searching for Satan together. However, even after traveling everywhere, from heaven to hell, they still could not find Satan. Beelzebub even studied countless documents, which left him exhausted, and he fell asleep. Suddenly, Satan appeared, and he captured Lucifer's group. This drove Beelzebub into despair, but it turned out to be just a nightmare. So, Lilith came to comfort him. At that moment, Beelzebub did not understand why Lucifer wanted to be his friend. Lilith said that he was a very warm-hearted person, and that he would never abandon those who were lonely. So, Beelzebub vowed to avenge Lucifer and protect Lilith. This made her blush. After that, Beelzebub fainted again. When he woke up, Beelzebub attacked Lilith. It turned out that when Beelzebub's love reached its peak, he would become a destroyer of the things he loved most. This was called demonic destrudo. At that moment, Beelzebub finally realized that Satan had always existed within him. Beelzebub saw Lilith severely injured. This made him panic. However, she felt happy about the time she spent with him, and she knew that Lucifer would not hate him either. At that moment, Lilith said, "I love you." Then, she gave Beelzebub her final command. He had to continue living. After that, Lilith died. This caused Beelzebub immense suffering. So now, Beelzebub only wishes to die. At this moment, the arena had been fully prepared. So, the 8th match could finally begin. Everyone watched in silence. The first to step onto the arena was known as the God of Darkness. And he was also one of the 7 deadly sins, gluttony. The gods themselves felt fear when facing him, because he was the Lord of the Flies. Beelzebub. At this moment, humanity began to feel anxious, because Beelzebub was truly a demon. Gaul realized that even the gods disliked Beelzebub. Then Heimdall began introducing humanity's representative. Suddenly, lightning bolts shot out. This stunned everyone. He was called the Child of Light, because he was the one who lit up the earth. He even created magic for humanity through science. So, he was known as humanity's one and only sorcerer. Nikola Tesla. Everyone was astonished, because he controlled armor that looked like a robot. At this moment, the battle between light and darkness began. Suddenly, Tesla walked toward Beelzebub. Tesla was curious about Beelzebub, because he was different from how Tesla had imagined him in stories. Tesla believed this battle would be very interesting, but Beelzebub said that he would end this battle simply. Meanwhile, Tesla believed that if the gods destroyed humanity, it would mean rejecting creation itself. Because humans always possess strong will and intelligence, they would continue to create endlessly. This was something the gods could never stop. But Beelzebub did not care, and he immediately attacked Tesla. This shocked everyone, because Beelzebub attacked without even moving. Everyone believed that this was magic. But Tesla said that this was science. Galileo and Thomas Edison realized that Beelzebub was using the law of oscillation in physics. Ares did not understand what oscillation was. So, Hermes demonstrated it using sound waves. At this moment, Beelzebub continued attacking Tesla. This caused Tesla's armor to be torn apart. It turned out that oscillation could be transformed into a sharp blade. Meanwhile, Tesla was astonished, because high-frequency oscillations could cut through his armor. This made Gaul worried, but Brunhilde trusted Tesla, because that armor was designed by the greatest mind in human history. And it was a divine weapon called Super Automaton Beta. Now, it was Tesla's turn to attack. He charged forward at incredible speed. Tesla's punches were extremely powerful. This shocked everyone. Edison said that this research was something he and Tesla came up with together. Tesla's technique was called plasma pulse punch. Einstein realized that Edison was trying to steal Tesla's credit again. Newton and Nobel thought the same, because they all trusted Tesla's science. At this moment, Tesla continued attacking. He became faster and faster, forcing Beelzebub to create a shield to block the blows. This delighted Tesla, because Beelzebub was able to block his punches with an oscillation wall. Now, it was Beelzebub's turn. He immediately used the technique Fallen Angel of Gluttony. So, Tesla responded with an extremely powerful strike. However, Beelzebub increased the oscillation frequency, and he overwhelmed Tesla. At this moment, Beelzebub mocked Tesla as being useless. It turned out that Beelzebub was regarded as a god with 2 faces. One side of him granted blessings to others. The other side destroyed everything. Everyone thought Tesla could not defeat Beelzebub. Brunhilde realized that Beelzebub's divine weapon was the staff of Apameus. When Beelzebub held it in his left hand, it became a shield. When he held it in his right hand, it became a sword. So, Beelzebub could maximize both offense and defense. However, Tesla was extremely fascinated by his opponent's abilities. Everyone realized this was Tesla's bad habit. He even wanted to borrow Beelzebub's divine weapon to study it. But Beelzebub had no time to play around with him. Suddenly, Tesla said, "It's here." Lightning appeared in the sky. Tesla began releasing his energy. He called this technique Prison of the Gods. This shocked everyone. Tesla was even able to float in midair. This thrilled the other scientists. At this moment, Tesla said, "Here, I am God." This delighted the children. They thought it was magic. But Edison said it was science. It turned out that after Tesla's death, many of his studies had never been published. Among them was research that allowed him to control gravity. When Tesla's research merged with Gondel, he created super Tesla particles. These enabled the anti-gravity system to function. But even Brunhilde did not know what super Tesla particles were. Only Tesla understood them. At this moment, Tesla began attacking. Unexpectedly, he was incredibly fast. This forced Beelzebub to retreat. he was even injured. Ares did not understand why Tesla's speed had increased so dramatically. Hermes explained that, when humans run, their feet must repeatedly touch the ground. So, they need time to reach maximum speed. But, Tesla used an anti-gravity system, allowing him to reach maximum speed in the very first step. Edison realized that this technique was called Zero Max. At this moment, Tesla kept moving at extreme speed. This completely overwhelmed Beelzebub. However, when Tesla continued his assault, Beelzebub began to counterattack. But, Tesla dodged, and immediately turned around to strike Beelzebub. This shattered Beelzebub's shield. This stunned everyone. Tesla confidently said that no one could predict his movement. It was called Tesla's step. This left everyone speechless, because the name of the technique sounded very strange. At this moment, Tesla continued moving at extreme speed. When he attacked, unexpectedly, Beelzebub managed to block Tesla's punch. Beelzebub said that he was tired of Tesla's tricks. But, Tesla decided to prove to him the true power of science. So, Tesla released his energy, and he delivered an extremely powerful punch to Beelzebub. It turned out that after Tesla died, his final research was conducted in secret. The government applied it to a ship. Unexpectedly, when the switch was activated, the ship vanished from Rarda, and it reappeared about 363 kilometers away. It turned out this was a teleportation experiment. Although the experiment succeeded, all the sailors on the ship died. So, the Navy decided to bury this experiment. At this moment, Tesla used teleportation, and he punched Beelzebub to the ground. This shocked everyone, because they did not see Tesla move at all. Beelzebub also realized that this was teleportation. This greatly intrigued Tesla. However, Beelzebub analyzed that this technique had 3 limitations. First, Tesla needed activation time. Second, the teleportation range was limited. And third, the number of activations was also limited. Suddenly, a piece of Tesla's armor shattered. This shocked everyone, but Tesla was delighted, because Beelzebub's analysis was correct. He even went on to explain his armor's weaknesses himself. He could only use it 2 more times. This left Edison speechless, because Tesla had revealed his own weakness. Beelzebub was also surprised, because Tesla had laid all his cards on the table. However, Tesla believed that when it comes to science, he would hide nothing. That was the way humanity could progress. This made Beelzebub feel intrigued. But, Beelzebub was injured. This made him recall, the last time he had been injured was when he faced Hades. It turned out that he had gone to challenge Hades. Beelzebub had even killed many monsters in the underworld. Hades realized that Beelzebub only wanted to die. So, he accepted the challenge. Beelzebub attacked relentlessly. But, he was no match for Hades. Beelzebub thought that this time he would finally die. Hades did not understand why he wanted that. It turned out that every time Beelzebub wished to die, he was stopped by Lilith's curse, because she wanted Beelzebub to keep living. Suddenly, Hades scolded him as a fool. He said that it was not a curse, but a prayer. So, he told Beelzebub that, instead of seeking death, he should think about how to live. This made Beelzebub remember his friends. The next day, he went to Hades again. But this time, he did not want Hades to grant him death anymore, because Beelzebub wanted to endure as much suffering as possible, to atone for all his sins before dying. This amused Hades. So, Hades bestowed upon Beelzebub the staff of Apomeus. It would allow Beelzebub to live longer, and prolong his suffering. At this moment, Beelzebub called Hades a nuisance, because Hades had made him no longer want to die alone, and instead, he wanted to slaughter all of humanity. Thus, Beelzebub began releasing his power. Adamas and Zeus realized that this was a forbidden technique in the underworld. Tesla immediately attacked, but Beelzebub continued performing the forbidden art, causing terrifying sounds to echo. Tesla realized that the situation was bad. Zeus ordered Beelzebub to stop, but the forbidden technique had already been completed. This caused the entire arena to shake violently. Everyone realized how terrifying this power was. At this moment, the arena was completely destroyed. However, Tesla was still standing, but he was gravely injured. No one knew what technique it was. Zeus explained that when Beelzebub combined oscillation-based offense and defense, it created an extremely powerful explosion. That was why Hades had forbidden this secret art in the underworld. However, Beelzebub was also injured. At this moment, Beelzebub did not expect Tesla to endure it. The other scientists realized that Tesla had sacrificed 1 Tesla energy core, so he could use plasma pulse punch to counter the explosion. Even so, he was still badly injured. Suddenly, Beelzebub wanted to end the battle. However, Tesla still refused to surrender. He recalled that when Tesla was a 5-year-old child, He often went to the laboratory of his older brother named Dane. Dane was a young inventor, and he was designing a wind turbine. But he was worried that he would fail. So, Tesla encouraged him. He said that failure would lead to new discoveries, and that it would drive the progress of humanity. This surprised Dane, because Tesla was only 5 years old. He believed his younger brother would become someone extraordinary. This delighted Tesla. However, one stormy day, Tesla discovered that his brother had been struck by lightning. This caused Tesla immense pain. So, Tesla decided to continue his brother's work, and he kept designing windmills for the villagers. Although they still did not work, Tesla never gave up. In the end, he created a new design. It allowed the windmill to function. When Tesla was 11 years old, he decided to follow the path his brother had taken, and he devoted his entire life to science. At this moment, Tesla continued to stand back up. This made everyone burst into tears. Tesla believed that, as long as humanity continued to inherit knowledge and advance science, humanity would never perish. So, Tesla continued fighting. He kept moving at incredible speed. Zeus realized that Beelzebub no longer had the strength to use that technique. But Tesla also could not use teleportation anymore. At this moment, their battle became extremely fierce. Suddenly, Tesla realized that he could no longer use Tesla's step because of the debris scattered across the arena. But Tesla saw that Beelzebub's body had reached its limit, preventing him from using oscillation properly. Unexpectedly, Beelzebub continued fighting. He did not even care about his own body. Beelzebub relentlessly attacked Tesla. Although Lilith's curse was restraining him, he still forced himself to attack. He even increased the oscillation further, creating an extremely powerful attack. This left Tesla unable to dodge. At this moment, everyone was extremely worried. They believed Tesla could no longer endure it. Unexpectedly, Tesla was still delighted. This shocked everyone, because Beelzebub's madness had given Tesla incredible research data. This reassured everyone. They realized that Tesla would never give up. Tesla said that, whenever humanity faced a crisis, they would continue to evolve. So, Tesla released his final energy core. Everyone placed their trust in him. At this moment, Jack the Ripper was worried. He did not know how Tesla would break Beelzebub's shield. Then, the two of them charged at each other. Tesla kept punching Beelzebub's shield. He punched at incredible speed. This shocked Jack the Ripper. Even Beelzebub had to focus all his power on defense. Adamas believed Tesla would soon run out of strength. But Beelzebub also could not maintain his defense forever. At this moment, both humanity and the gods cheered passionately. This delighted the scientists, because their science was able to fight against the gods. Unexpectedly, Tesla reached his limit first. This caused him to collapse. Tesla realized that his body had been affected by the explosion. However, he still struggled to stand and continue punching. Seizing this opportunity, Beelzebub counterattacked. Everyone believed Beelzebub would win. But Tesla still refused to give up. He charged forward and punched Beelzebub. Suddenly, Tesla's right arm vanished, and it teleported behind Beelzebub. At the same time, Tesla threw another punch with his left hand. Thus, they unleashed their final attacks. But Tesla was struck by Beelzebub. This completely exhausted him. Even so, Tesla was delighted, because Beelzebub had moved one step ahead of him. However, Beelzebub also respected Tesla, so he turned around and walked away. Meanwhile, Tesla declared to humanity that in this battle, they had advanced one step further. As long as humans never give up, science and humanity would never end. Then, Tesla vanished together with his Valkyrie. But humanity was immensely proud of him. In the end, Beelzebub emerged victorious. However, the gods realized that Tesla was truly powerful. He had even been able to overwhelm Beelzebub. But they were still pleased with this victory. Beelzebub saw that everyone's attitude toward him had changed. He believed that gods and humans were not so different after all. At this moment, Ares and Hermes were deeply impressed by Tesla's final move, because he had sacrificed his right arm. After that, Tesla threw punches both to the front and the back. Hermes realized that Tesla had calculated this very carefully. This even surprised Zeus. At this moment, the other scientists were all admiring Tesla. They all acknowledged Tesla as the greatest scientist, and they believed that humanity could still move toward the future. Meanwhile, Gaul was very sad, because her sister had died. But she and Tesla still smiled brightly. At this moment, humanity and the gods were tied once again. Meanwhile, Brunhilde returned to the room. She saw the fallen warriors. She realized that they were all magnificent fighters. So, Brunhilde burst into tears. Unexpectedly, Buddha was also there. He teased Brunhilde. This made her angry, because he had disappeared from the infirmary. Suddenly, Buddha asked her, is Siegfried your boyfriend? And he thought this battle was connected to Siegfried. But Brunhilde denied it. She said that Siegfried was not her boyfriend. This shocked Buddha. At this moment, inside the prison of the underworld, the guards were discussing the Ragnarok match. Humanity and the gods were tied. This surprised the demigod. He thought this was something no one could have predicted. When the guards were about to talk to him, they suddenly remembered that they were forbidden to speak to this prisoner. So, they immediately left. But he knew that Brunhilde was the one who had created this battle. It turned out that he was Siegfried. At this moment, Ares was extremely tense, because he knew that the next warrior representing the gods was a strange one. However, Zeus said that this warrior was very powerful. After that, they went to meet a god who was bathing with girls. This angered Ares, because that god could leisurely enjoy himself at such a time. It turned out that he was Apollo. Suddenly, Apollo hugged Ares. This made Ares uncomfortable. At this moment, Zeus told Apollo that they had already lost 4 matches. Among them were Poseidon, Heracles, and Hades. This surprised Apollo. He felt regretful, because he could not witness their beautiful deaths. This enraged Ares, because Apollo did not seem sad at all. But Apollo said that they had fought with their very souls. So, that was the ultimate form of beauty. And he also decided to fight. At this moment, Brunhilde had also chosen the next warrior. She arrived at a gigantic room. Brunhilde called this person the greatest rebel in human history. She explained that human history had thousands of civilizations. But there was one civilization more glorious than all others. That was Sparta. Gaul saw the warriors training. This frightened her. After that, they went to meet a man lying on a hammock. It turned out that he was King Leonidas, and he would be the human representative in the 9th match. However, Leonidas refused, because he only wanted to be either the first or the last. But Brunhilde provoked him. She said that only he could defeat Apollo in the 9th match. When he learned that the opponent was the god of the sun, Apollo, Leonidas became furious, because he regarded Apollo as a bastard, and his hobby was kicking gods off their pedestals. So, Leonidas agreed. At this moment, Gyarallo also arrived. She would be the Valkyrie supporting Leonidas. But their hearts needed to synchronize before the battle. However, both of them were extremely arrogant. Leonidas said that he would not easily trust anyone. This angered Gyarallo. So, she attacked him. Although they argued fiercely, their personalities matched extremely well, and they were able to merge into a divine weapon. At this moment, the 9th match began. This excited everyone. Heimdall began introducing the Spartan people. They were the strongest people in human history, because they were born solely to fight. Even just 300 Spartan warriors dared to face 300,000 Persian soldiers. Under the command of the strongest Spartan king, Leonidas, he was a man who would never submit to any god. Then, it was Apollo's turn to appear. He made the entire arena shine brightly, because he symbolized beauty and power. All the girls were enchanted by his looks. But, before the battle could even begin, Leonidas immediately attacked Apollo. This shocked everyone. However, Apollo managed to dodge. He mocked Leonidas as nothing more than a wild beast. So, Leonidas kept attacking Apollo relentlessly. But Apollo dodged every strike. It turned out that Gyarallo had transformed into a shield. Leonidas said he would make Apollo pay. This surprised Apollo, because they had never met before. Leonidas cursed him as a bastard. This enraged Apollo, because Leonidas was insulting his beauty. In the past, Leonidas had always been admired by everyone. When they were about to face 300,000 enemy soldiers, he was regarded as the most admired man in history. When the Persian king was preparing to invade Sparta, the Spartan elders opposed the war, because they feared that the god Apollo would bring punishment upon them. And this was a prophecy that had been upheld in Sparta for centuries. However, Leonidas opposed the elders. He scolded them as fools, because they believed the words of someone they had never even seen. So, King Leonidas decided to fight the Persian army. He even punched and shattered the statue of Apollo. This enraged the elders. They thought that no Spartan would follow him. Unexpectedly, a soldier immediately ran after Leonidas. Soon, 300 warriors chose to follow their king. This delighted Leonidas. At that moment, 300 Spartan warriors faced an army of 300,000 Persian soldiers. This made everyone think it was madness. And their battle inspired all of Greece, helping them repel the Persian army. Because of this, all Spartan warriors admired Leonidas. At this moment, Leonidas still deeply hated Apollo, because of Apollo's prophecy imposed on his people. But Apollo believed that those words had brought them peace. This enraged Leonidas. He transformed the shield into spinning saw blades and hurled them straight at Apollo. But Apollo blocked the attack. Unexpectedly, Leonidas increased his strength and pushed Apollo back. This injured Apollo. Leonidas continued attacking, but Apollo dodged again. Suddenly, Gaul saw Apollo's hands begin to glow. Brunhilde realized that Apollo's divine weapon was the threads of Artemis. It was a thread of light woven from radiant energy. Apollo used it to block Leonidas' attacks, and it was one of the strongest divine weapons in heaven. At this moment, Apollo transformed the threads of Artemis into a pair of gloves. Leonidas realized that Apollo was troublesome, so he used another ultimate technique to attack. But Apollo avoided every strike. It turned out that Apollo was the god of boxing, so he could easily evade attacks. Suddenly, Leonidas increased his attack speed, but Apollo dodged and punched Leonidas in the face. At this moment, Leonidas was struck repeatedly by Apollo. None of Leonidas' attacks could hit Apollo. This enraged the Spartan soldiers. They mocked Apollo for only running around. This angered Apollo. Suddenly, Apollo drew two lines in front of Leonidas. It turned out he was narrowing the arena. Leonidas felt that Apollo was looking down on him. Even all the Spartan warriors felt this was a humiliation. Meanwhile, the gods did not understand what Apollo was doing, because confronting Leonidas head-on was extremely dangerous. But Zeus said that, when Apollo fought like this, no one could defeat him, because he always lived up to everyone's expectations. This was Apollo's ultimate battle mode. At this moment, Apollo was shining brilliantly. Meanwhile, Gaul saw her sister and Leonidas being mocked like this. She felt they would not be able to endure it. But Brunhilde believed this was actually a good thing. At this moment, both Leonidas and Gyarallo wanted to kill Apollo. Leonidas swore to make Apollo kneel at his feet. Suddenly, Leonidas pulled out a hammer from the shield. This intrigued Apollo. Then, the two of them moved closer. Leonidas unleashed a devastating blow at Apollo. But Apollo dodged it, and immediately punched Leonidas in the stomach. When Leonidas tried to counterattack, suddenly, his arm could no longer move. It turned out that Apollo had bound his arm. This shocked Leonidas. Then, Apollo punched him in the face, nearly knocking him to the ground. But Apollo held Leonidas in place, and he unleashed a massive punch to end the match. Gaul thought everything was already over. But Brunhilde said, "The Spartans are people with the strongest fighting spirit, because they will never bow to anyone." Suddenly, Leonidas pulled Apollo toward him and headbutted him. This caused Apollo immense pain, and Leonidas followed up with an extremely powerful attack. This shocked everyone. At this moment, the goddesses became worried, because Apollo had been knocked down. Humanity realized that this was the true power of the Spartans. This made the Spartan warriors extremely proud of their king. Brunhilde was thrilled. The gods never expected humanity to be this strong. Suddenly, Apollo stood back up, but he was severely injured. Leonidas said that Apollo looked utterly miserable now. But Apollo replied that as long as he fought and defeated Leonidas, he would be more beautiful than ever. Meanwhile, the gods began criticizing Apollo, because he had foolishly faced Leonidas head-on. However, Zeus knew very well that Apollo understood exactly what he was doing. Legend says that, in ancient Greece, a monster named Python once appeared. It frequently attacked villages. It even defeated many of Ares' soldiers. This made everyone fear and despise it. One day, Apollo found Python. He came on behalf of Ares to deal with it. This delighted Python, because Apollo was one of the 12 Olympian gods. Unexpectedly, Apollo defeated Python with a single blow. However, Python refused to give up. This intrigued Apollo. He suggested that they fight again the next day. In the days that followed, Python was defeated by Apollo again and again. But Python still refused to surrender. This surprised Apollo. It turned out that because Python was so ugly, he had always been abused for no reason. That was why he could not accept losing to someone who possessed both beauty and strength like Apollo. Suddenly, Apollo found Python truly beautiful. He said that appearance did not matter. What was truly beautiful was Python's blazing fighting spirit. This made Python burst into tears. It turned out that Apollo himself had always been looked down upon by the other Greek gods. But he rose through blood-soaked effort. Eventually, Apollo became one of the 12 Olympian gods. At this moment, Apollo told Python to understand and take pride in his own beauty. This made Python very happy. After that, Python no longer attacked humans, and instead helped them build a temple to worship Apollo. That was why Zeus knew Apollo was truly powerful. At this moment, Apollo decided to burn his soul for this battle. This delighted Leonidas. Apollo acknowledged that Leonidas' blows were beautiful. Suddenly, Apollo removed the threads from his gloves. Brunhilde realized that he was about to use that technique. A massive wall appeared in the center of the arena. It turned out that this divine weapon was called Moonlight of Artemis. Then, Apollo created a gigantic bow. This stunned everyone. When Apollo drew the bow, Leonidas prepared to face it head-on. Brunhilde immediately warned him to dodge. But, Apollo released the arrow. Unexpectedly, the arrow flew at the speed of light. Leonidas could not even see it. Anyone struck by Apollo's arrow would die without even feeling pain. Even giants had fallen to this attack. Only Zeus had ever managed to block that arrow. At this moment, Leonidas was gravely wounded, so he switched to a defensive stance. Apollo continued drawing his bow. He kept firing arrows at Leonidas. This terrified everyone, because Apollo's arrows were ricocheting into the stands. Meanwhile, Leonidas was struck again and again. This made Gyaralal anxious, but Leonidas was determined to smash Apollo's arrows. When Apollo fired an especially powerful arrow, unexpectedly, Leonidas blocked it. He even knocked it back toward Apollo. This injured Apollo. This shocked everyone. Unbelievably, Apollo collapsed. Hermes did not understand how Leonidas could see the arrow. But Zeus said it was pure instinct. Because Leonidas had fought through countless bloody battles, he possessed the instincts and experience of a true warrior. Seeing Apollo fall made everyone uneasy. But Apollo still stood back up. Leonidas mocked Apollo's words as meaningless. This made Apollo laugh, because Leonidas had become even more beautiful in his eyes. At this moment, the two of them had finally acknowledged each other. But Zeus realized that both Leonidas and Apollo had reached their limits. Apollo asked Leonidas what he was fighting for. Leonidas said that humans do not have the right to choose how they are born. But they do have the right to choose how they live and how they die. Because they all follow their own hearts. The Spartan warriors immediately cheered for him. Suddenly, Leonidas' shield turned red. It was called the Shield of Truth of Sparta. Gaul thought it was just an ordinary shield. Brunhilde explained that it was the core symbol of Sparta. It represented unstoppable advance, and the power to smash through the enemy's battle lines. Apollo felt an overwhelming pressure. So, he also burned his soul. He transformed the threads into a long rope connecting the two arms of the statue. It turned out that Apollo was turning himself into an arrow. He wanted to shatter Leonidas' shield. As everyone watched in tense silence, Leonidas and Apollo launched their attacks. They charged at each other at incredible speed. Unexpectedly, Leonidas' shield shattered, but it turned out to be a feint. Leonidas immediately grabbed Apollo, because his true goal was to punch Apollo's smug face. In the end, Leonidas was defeated. This made the Spartan warriors burst into tears. But they continued to admire their king. Apollo also admired the beauty of Leonidas. And Apollo won the 9th match. This made the gods extremely happy. At this moment, Apollo was accepting everyone's praise. But Hermes realized that he was only forcing himself to stand. Apollo did not even want his facial wounds treated, because he saw them as proof of his battle with Leonidas and Gyaralal. At this moment, Python did not dare watch the match. But when he saw that Apollo was safe, he realized that Apollo had won. Suddenly, he fainted. So, Python carried Apollo to the medical room. Meanwhile, the Spartan warriors were deeply saddened. But they continued to uphold their warrior spirit, because they were proud of their king. Other warriors also admired Leonidas. Okita felt jealous, because he wanted to step onto the arena himself. Meanwhile, Brunhilde was troubled. She did not know who to choose for the next battle. Because humanity had lost 2 matches in a row, they could not afford another loss. Suddenly, Okita stepped forward. He said, "I won't lose to anyone." So, Brunhilde decided to trust Okita, because he was the greatest swordsman in human history. This delighted Okita. At this moment, Odin met Buddha, but Odin was not interested in talking to him. Suddenly, Buddha asked who Siegfried was, because Buddha knew that Odin was the one who imprisoned Siegfried. It turned out that Siegfried had committed the crime of killing Odin's dragon. But that crime was not severe enough to warrant imprisonment in hell. So, Buddha believed Odin was hiding something. And Buddha realized that Brunhilde had not started Ragnarok solely to save humanity. She also wanted to save her lover. So, Buddha believed that Odin had some scheme involving Siegfried. This angered Odin. He immediately summoned his divine weapon and attacked Buddha. This only made Buddha more confident in his suspicions. When Odin was about to kill Buddha, Beelzebub suddenly appeared and stopped him. He realized that Odin had been harboring ambition for a long time. It turned out that Beelzebub knew Odin was planning to revive the primordial gods. This shocked Buddha and amused Odin. At this moment, the 10th match was about to begin. The fighter representing humanity was Soji Okita, and the representative of the gods was Susanoo no Mikoto. That's all for today's video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support Oni-chan in future videos. Thank you all for watching. Love you all.